And I'm trying to ask it the way you would and not knowing. And what I'm happy about, the reason it makes me happy, is that you, Devin, or viewer, whoever, think your question is completely logical. But to the person I'm asking, they might get offended. They might think, how dare you even ask this? And I think that's important. I think in conflicts, understanding even what you're allowed to ask is interesting and important as to learn about the conflict.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. Well, before we go forward with, I mean, there's so many disagreements, obviously, but what is something that the Israelis and the Palestinians actually agree on that I guess an average viewer would be shocked to hear?
I don't really have. They don't agree on much. It's a weird thing that they don't agree if they actually were to. First of all, they can't meet is another thing. So Israelis and Palestinians, because of the nature of the conflict and how everybody is now separated, don't often get a chance to meet. So if they could, um, they would notice that first of all they look a lot alike, which each side thinks the other looks different, which I think is hilarious. I constantly it's this thing that goes on in my head where I'm in the Palestinian territories and I see someone and I think, wow, I know a guy who looks exactly like this guy. I wish I could ask both of them a question and just put it like just for that visual because they look exactly alike. They don't realize Palestinians think all Jews are from Poland. They're not. Um, the Israelis think all Jews look like they came from Saudi Arabia. They do not. I know lots of blonde Palestinians. Um, they think alike and they mirror each other in a lot of ways in terms of how they speak about the conflict. But what they would agree on, not a lot, because this becomes about identity, and each side's identity feels threatened by the other's identity. So it becomes very complicated. It's very all or nothing. Very few people will agree to compromise in this, especially now when things have gotten much worse. Um, the thing that would shock you come, let's say, to Israel is that within Israel, there are 2 million Palestinians, like Arab Israelis who are Palestinian, and they work with Jewish Israelis, live with Jewish Israelis, interact. So you would probably not notice that you're standing around people who are Palestinian and Jews and Israelis, and one of them might be a right wing Ben Gvir supporter, and the other is a Palestinian who votes for the Muslim Brotherhood, and they might be great friends at work. They just will never talk about the conflict. So they might be friendly and friends to a certain because of work, um, but they just won't talk about the conflict. They sort of use these empty platitudes with each other. Oh, we just want peace. Oh, we just want, and it's just a way to smooth out because you have to work together and you have to get along. So why cause trouble? What's the point? So I think people, when they come to visit, they don't even realize those dynamics are happening. And when I point them out, usually tourists are very surprised by that this happens all the time.
Wow. Do, do you have a, because I imagine you have a good understanding about daily life for Israelis. Do you have a pretty good understanding what daily life looks like for Palestinians as well?
Yes, now after 14 years, of course. Better, not perfect. I still don't understand their culture. My translator or Palestinian friends will kind of test me on this, not purposely. They'll say, "Well, you know what we Palestinians think about whatever," and or you know what they'll say to this question. And every time I make a guess, I'm wrong. Every time. They're sort of think the opposite of how I would think as a Canadian. The opposite. And I realized this. Here, I'll give an example. I realized this when I would ask Palestinians, "Do you want peace?" And they would all say, "Of course, I want peace." And if we end the occupation, blah blah blah, the occupation, right? And I realized it took me years to figure out. When I ask a Palestinian about peace, he doesn't mean peace with an Israeli. He means peace between Palestinians or peace with the world. And so when I have to be very careful in how I phrase a question and then dig. and say, when I say peace, I mean peace with the Israelis. And then suddenly it went from, of course, I believe in peace to, oh, no, 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 I don't want peace with those people. And as a Canadian, I'm floored by this, but now I'm used to it, right? Or the occupation. The occupation to most people, as well as me, meant the 67 borders, meaning the West Bank and Gaza. And to no Palestinian does that mean the occupation. The occupation means Israel exists. So Israel has to be destroyed, period. There's nothing else. So when they talk about the occupation, they mean all of Israel. So it took me years to figure that out because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, there's compromise here. There's room for positivity. And it took me years to figure that out because nobody explains themselves here. And this is probably true in all conflicts that you start to speak in like slogans or in like certain words and they mean one thing to you and you don't realize that they mean something very different to another to someone else far away. So you have to really just keep clarifying, is this what you mean, is this what you mean? um and I still don't think I understand what it feels like to be a Palestinian in the West Bank and day to day, that I understand. I don't understand their culture. I really don't. It's a very different culture.
Wow. Okay. And I think since October 7th, the world got a much better view of the true conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And obviously, I imagine your channel changed quite a bit in terms of. I imagine you didn't just go out on October 7th and start to interview people once it happened. I imagine it took
No, I
some.
took a break of a couple of months because I thought people are just going to be horrible. Like they're going to say awful
Mhm.
things. And I don't like to ask during an act of war, unless it's about the act of war, then that's fine. But to ask, would you make peace when people are mourning someone they knew who was killed? It's kind of an unfair thing to do. But at a certain point, yeah, you have to go back to it. So it is what it is. And I think the feelings of October 7th on the Israeli side for sure, less so on the Palestinian side, but on the Israeli side, they're not going to change. Meaning it changed everything. So meaning I think there were a lot of Israelis, the second Intifada, like the 90s, early 2000s, changed a lot of Israelis who believed in peace because it was up to 70% of Israelis who believed in peace with the Palestinians. And it knocked it down to, I think it was like 30% before October 7th. And then it just kept going down. It was like 8%, after. And it still kind of hovers. Would you make a compromise at 20% on both sides? But Palestinians and Israelis both say that now. But Israelis are very, very traumatized by October 7th, very much.
Well, do you remember your first interview after October 7th, which whether it was towards the Palestinians or towards the Israelis?
It was definitely towards the Israelis. It took longer to go to the my translators were all too nervous. Although it turned out to be fine and people were actually very happy to answer questions. But it took about 6 months to go back to that. Um, the first interview itself, I remember going to there's a mall, an outdoor mall, about 45 minutes south of Tel Aviv, which is a great place because it has like all levels of society. There's like, not not rich people, but middle class, lower class, some Russians, Arabs, Palestinians, like not from the West Bank, from within Israel, different groups, right? So I like to ask there. It's a really good cross section of Israeli society. Um, and I remember asking, and a lot of people were like, "No, they didn't want to be interviewed because they one woman I remember said, "This is the first time in a couple of months that I've been out of my house since October 7th because I feel too guilty to leave my house when people are suffering and people were killed. I won't be I can't be in your video. I just can't. I won't be able to get it together." Um and because I'm Canadian, I don't feel that same level of connection in a sense here. So that kind of surprised me a bit. The people were just still so raw, months later.
And then do you remember what you asked to the Palestinian side after that?
I definitely asked one about do you want to do another October 7th or what do you think? I forget how I phrased it or how it was phrased. I mean, I don't actually phrase the questions. Um, it was a mix. It was definitely a mix. There were older people, so this is a trend. People who are 45 and over tend to be much more willing to compromise. You can have you can debate, you can see how deep their anger is, and they're maybe willing to compromise. Younger people were like, no, of course we want to do another October 7th. Of course we do. Not all, but some. There's definitely there.
Yeah. What do the Palestinians what's like the range of answers you get about Hamas from the Palestinian side? Because I know that's a very polarizing topic, obviously, but what do you hear from them when they
Most Palestinians like Hamas, and always did. It has nothing to do so they see something very different. Here's another one. This will surprise you. So they don't like how conservative Hamas is, for example. So, for example, they know that in Gaza, pre October 7th, if you had, some kind of haircut, which was not the norm for Palestinian society, you can be beaten in Palestinian society in Gaza. I know people in Gaza, this is true, who were beaten because their hair was a little too not masculine, let's say. Um, they will say you could speak to someone in Ramallah who's open-minded, and they'll say, "Yeah, they're too conservative for me." And I'll say, "Well, is there anything you like about Hamas?" They go, "Oh, well, we love how they fight. We love that they kill Israelis." And these are intellectuals, by the way. These are the educated Ramallah rich people who, because they believe there shouldn't be an Israel, and Hamas is just one of the mechanisms to do that. So everybody will see something different. And then somebody who's maybe more religious, a little poorer, might see, oh, I respect their religious integrity of Hamas. Yes, they're very, they'll see just different things that what you and I see or what you and I hear about. So they might not agree with them politically or religiously, but they'll see different things. As people told me, there's a video, I think I made it in 2014 or 15. Yeah, asking people, "Do you like Hamas?" And most people answered in this very generic, "Hamas is part of us. They're just part of us." Now, also understand that in the West Bank, Palestinians are not totally free. So, because they live under Fatah, the the Palestinian Authority, which is the enemy, or Hamas is their enemy, they can't say too good of things about Hamas or say they support Hamas openly, but they do see Hamas as their people. That's part of their people, mostly. I have friends who are very anti-Hamas, who are Palestinian from Gaza. Very. So I know it exists. There are people who are against Hamas, but the average person on the street sees it just as another Palestinian group.